An hour of First Take. How worried should we be about Cam Newton? And is Foles or Wentz actually better for Doug Peterson? Steven's A-list counting down the top 5 NFL teams after Week 15. Second hour of First Take right now.
Sports Center right now. I'm Antonita Collins. An ugly but productive 12-9 win for the Saints over the Panthers has it looking more like the road to the Super Bowl in the NFC will go through New Orleans. Monday Night Football on CLT. According to ESPN's FPI, the Saints have a 95% chance to earn the top seed. In the first quarter, running back Christian McCaffrey showing he can throw. The former Stanford star completing a 50-yard touchdown pass to Chris Manhurst, his first NFL pass attempt. He was actually 2 for 3 throwing at Stanford. All right, in the fourth, the Saints up by 5, going for 2. Breeze rolls out and is intercepted by rookie Dante Jackson. Jackson showing off his speed, and he runs it all the way back. So the Panthers score 2 points in the play. They now trail by just 3. After a Saints fumble, last chance for the Panthers, 4th and 5. Newton to Ian Thomas, who can make it happen. The Saints go on to win 12-9, the fewest points they've scored in a win since 1998. Now back to First Take.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to First Take, coming to you live from the Seaport District at Pier 17, brought to you by Chase. Here's the deal. Saints offense has looked like a shell of themselves over the last 3 weeks on the road, being held to 12 points or less in 2 of them. Ryan Clark is back with us. Good to see you. Stephen A.,
yeah.
You nervous about New Orleans?
I'm very nervous about New Orleans. Over the last 3 weeks or so, Drew Brees has thrown 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. They've lost the game, obviously, to Dallas. They won the last 2. They struggled against Tampa before pulling away from them. Last night, they only scored 12 points. My confidence in the New Orleans Hornets, New Orleans Saints, is because...
You even missed the Pelicans.
How about that? I even missed the Pelicans. You know what I'm saying? Going back in the day, yet again. Here's the deal. The bottom line is I'm looking at this offense for the New Orleans Saints, and I considered it a juggernaut, just unstoppable. That hasn't been the case over the last couple of weeks. I wasn't surprised at how effective they were against the run last week. I wasn't surprised at how effective they were against the run the week before. I am surprised at how impotent they've been offensively. I am surprised at Drew Brees. I am surprised at how they haven't been able to run the football effectively. I am surprised at how Mark Ingram has taken a step back to some degree. I'm looking at him and Alvin Kamara right now, and they were far more formidable before the last 3 weeks than they've been over the last 3 weeks. Again, I'm still high on them enough because they've got home field advantage, and I believe in New Orleans they are a different team, but I am more of the ilk. Remember a few weeks ago, Max, where I was of the mindset, Drew Brees going to road. Drew Brees is going to the road, and somehow, some way, he'll find a way. Even though they had it last night, they had me so damn nervous last night, I said to myself, you know what? I don't like the thought of them going on the road now. And that's where my trepidation kicks in. I'm still not done with them by any stretch. I'm just not as high on them as I was
yesterday. They became 96% likely to have home field throughout the playoffs. Therefore, you don't have to worry too much about them. I love Drew Brees like anyone who's ever met him or dealt with him or watched him play. The fact is, the reason we have, there's just been this theme this year that we've underrated Drew Brees his whole career. No, we haven't. We haven't pegged exactly right. He was not as good as Tom Brady. He's not as good as Peyton Manning. Not as good as Aaron Rodgers, but he is in their category. He's the last guy at the end of the premier guys, of the elite guys.
And what's crazy, though, I'm going to cut you off and let you finish. He's been there his whole career.
Yeah.
Now, let me just say, this season, people have been a little fooled because he has an absurd super team around him. By the way, both sides of the ball, they're really good on defense. I'm not surprised at all about the way they've looked recently. They had 3 consecutive road games. He has never been the same quarterback on the road, ever. There's been a big difference, and I've warned everyone about this. But as it turns out, they wrapped up home field, basically. So they're going to be okay. Let's not forget how much can change in our perceptions in 2 or 3 weeks of football. The hottest team at the end is the team we like. First it was the Rams, then it was and then it was and Mahomes was going to be the MVP because of the way the Chiefs, and then it was Drew Brees got the MVP locked up and the Saints are the juggernaut. Then you turn around and say maybe the Bears are going to win and maybe the MVP is someone else. There's still some more football to be played. The Saints have been a little bit overrated this year, as has Drew Brees, as great as he's been. They're going to be okay because they have home field, and that's where he's best.
I remember having the argument, the Mahomes-Brees MVP argument on this show, and we were talking about the historic clip that Drew Brees was playing at. And we all felt that was unsustainable, because it is. It was historic because it's never been seen before. It was even beyond anything Drew Brees had ever done. The other thing that I often mention on this show is I talk about the Saints' weapons. Outside of Alvin Kamara, they don't have a special weapon. Mike Thomas is a number one receiver. He's not a number one receiver in the light of a Julio Jones, in the light of an Antonio Brown.
Drew Brees makes him look better in fact.
Odell Beckham Jr.
Yep.
He has to make so many combat catches because he's a big body. He's a guy that can shield and play physical. When you look at the Carolina Panthers and the Dallas Cowboys, they are made up in the exact same way. If you would take Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith and compare them to two older linebackers, who would you pick? And not because one's white and one's black.
No, because they're awesome.
But because that's the type of players they are, right? You look at the secondary, Bradbury, a guy who's a long press corner who can match up with Mike Thomas physically. Byron Jones plays for the Dallas Cowboys, a team that can get after you up front. They're built in the same way, which is why you give Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints problems. There isn't a guy outside of Michael Thomas that's going to make a play for Drew Brees at wide receiver. We're starting to see that.
Kamara.
If Alvin
He's kind of
right. I mean, I said as a wide receiver.
Yeah.
Alvin Kamara is the one matchup issue you have, and he doesn't work when you have good linebackers. So we've seen this take its toll on the Saints as the season has gone on. What you can bank on for the Saints is that Drew Brees is different at home. This team as a whole is different at home, and now they've wrapped up home field advantage, basically. That's where they're going to be an issue.
Well, I'm very happy that they won last night because I think that gives the Steelers a better chance of winning this weekend than had they lost.
Speaking of being better at home.
That's a big deal. That's number one. But I want to remind y'all about this with Drew Brees. Over the last 4 games, he hasn't thrown for over 203 yards. In 2 of those games, he hasn't even thrown for 200 yards. That's a problem for me. I'm looking at Michael Thomas. Outside of him and Kamara, who's your second leading receiver on the team, basically. Even though he's a running back, he's got 627 receiving yards. I'm just looking down the list here. Traquan Smith, 300-plus yards. Ben Watson, 300-plus yards. Keith Kirkwood, 100-plus yards. Dan Arnold, 100-plus yards. There's really nobody but Michael Thomas.
100%.
And Alvin Kamara.
They went after Dez, and then they went after Brandon Marshall, right? When in fact the guy that they should have gone after is the guy that the Patriots picked up. They needed a guy like Josh Gordon. They needed an athlete who's a little bit different, not just an old retread who has some size. And they don't have another guy like that.
Only problem with your argument. I like Josh Gordon a hell of a lot better in Foxborough, Massachusetts,
than the big city, 504.
There's a little bit more distractions.
But what
you
I mean
understand
is,
more of a
You can get
nightlife.
distracted anywhere. You can get distracted in Boston, too.
Excuse me.
You
Foxborough?
can. You're not in Foxborough. You're
Wait a minute.
Boston.
A lot of those guys are in Foxborough during the week.
New Orleans is different.
New
Orleans is different animal.
Nobody is in Foxborough.
Molly, with all due respect,
You guys can get in anywhere. That's
Molly.
the worst argument, though. You're talking about
that is not the
professional
worst
athletes
argument.
with so much money.
I'm calling you out right here. That is so phony on your part. Molly, hold on. Molly, give somebody a chance to address you since you always got something to say. All right, here's the deal. So Mollywood, let me get this straight. Mollywood.
Yeah.
What's that nickname? Mollywood.
But you gave her that
There's
nickname.
no difference. Don't I mean? Hold on. There's no difference between New Orleans and Foxborough.
First of all, it's not Foxborough. It's Boston.
Is Boston a party town, Molly?
Yes, you can go out Boston.
You can party
anywhere.
Go out is different. But listen, I'm from New Orleans. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's different.
It's different. It never
You
sleeps.
guys,
You don't know that?
you
never sleep.
But
You
you
know that.
guys, you can get into trouble anywhere.
You don't know
No
that.
question.
But some places
Some
more
places
than
help.
others.
Some
You don't know
places
that.
help you get
You
to
don't
trouble
know
a
there's a
little
difference.
faster.
And I went to LA for work. That was a job opportunity. Nick Foles saves the season for Philly, and Ryan Clark knows one eagle that shouldn't want Carson Wentz on the field again this season. Coming up next on First Take, Ryan.